Hey, are you here? Thank you for being right here, and welcome to 4 Underrated Buffett Songs of the 2000s, a commentary. You know, earlier this year we had the 70s and the 80s installments, and then we said the 90s would be the last. But the fact is, Paul never dreamed of how popular they'd be, and we have you to thank for that. So before we get started, be sure you subscribe to Paul Leslie's YouTube channel. It's a fast and free way to keep up with our endless content because we're just getting started. So now, the 4 underrated Buffett songs from the 2000s to the present day, a commentary. Take it away, Mr. Pauly.
A nice guy called Ben Nevill from the United Kingdom commented on the YouTube video for the underrated Buffett songs of the 90s. Wanted to ask if you have any underrated songs you would choose or recommend for the 2000s that Jimmy had done. Thanks for asking, Ben. Your wish is my command. There are a number of fantastic but underrated Buffett songs from 2000 to the present day. Oh yeah, and there's a new album coming. But back to the lecture at hand. I'm going to pick 4 underrated Buffett songs from the 2000s, and I should tell you in advance, I'm partial to the ballads. I know without a doubt the first one on my list. Someday I Will is the next to the last song on the fabulous Far Side of the World album that came out in 2002. Someday I Will seems to be about having a wish so strong that it feels like conviction. It's a song about following that most deeply felt yearning to accomplish an experience. The lyrics are evocative, depicting everything from a man performing on stage with a guitar to the adventures of boating on the water. They're also tricky at times, specifying that the narrator doesn't necessarily have a dream, but implores the listener to keep moving and to just say, "Someday I will." Jimmy delivers the vocals with a sentimental yearning. I've never heard him sing with such unbridled emotion to that level. This song is the most personally significant to me of all the ones analyzed in this series. When I think about Someday I Will, it represents a time in my life where I was at a crossroad. Was I going to take the road less traveled or opt for security? The lyrics seem to call out to me. The song and the singer don't promise success. They acknowledge that your plans may not work, but that doesn't mean you don't give it a shot. Someday I Will was co-written by Matt Betton, who toured with the Coral Reefers as a drummer for years. He wrote some great songs like If It All Falls Down and Apocalypso, and co-wrote some great songs with Buffett like Breathe In, Breathe Out, Move On. He's been kind enough to let me hear some of the demos, which were fascinating. We can be certain that Matt is proud of Someday I Will. Buffett and the band played Someday I Will about 20 times from 2001 to 2003, usually as the last song of the evening. It's criminally underrated, and maybe someday it will get brought back out. We know that Marilyn Monroe has been a source of inspiration for Jimmy Buffett for years. He once wrote that there were 10 pictures of Marilyn Monroe in his old Key West recording studio. Apparently, she's remained an inspiration, as we hear in Beautiful Swimmers from the 2009 album Buffet Hotel. The song is somewhat lullaby-like. Although the song begins with Marilyn Monroe posing nude, the story and the sentiment convey the utmost innocence. But what was the spark? Was it Marilyn? Jimmy Buffett says it was actually a book by the late William W. Warner, first published in 1976. Let's hear Jimmy's recollection. Watch.
Anyway, this song was inspired by a book about crabs. The kind you eat. I mean, I know where I am. I'm on the eastern shore here, you know. And I failed to remember the author's name, but it was a beautiful book called Beautiful Swimmers about blue crabs. And how they migrate and how they move around the Chesapeake Bay. I come from crab country too, down on the Gulf Coast in Mobile, Alabama, on Mobile Bay. So we share an affinity for the blue crab, don't we? So we've never done this song ever before, and I think it's most apropos that we do it on the shores of Chesapeake Bay right here.
Some have said Beautiful Swimmers was originally intended for the Far Side of the World album, and it does seem to fit those songs. I love Jimmy Buffett's vision of everyone on Earth banding together in the water. A great throng of swimmers, all moving in unison. It's got such a dreamy mood to it. The nostalgic sound of Doyle Grisham's pedal steel guitar just marries with Jimmy's vocals so delicately and flawlessly. How did Jimmy Buffett tie together Marilyn Monroe, Blue Crabs of Baltimore, and Waimea Bay? I'm glad his imagination conjured up this water ballet. It's only been performed 3 times. It's doubtful that William W. Warner got to hear Jimmy's song since he passed away in 2008, but my suspicion is that he would have been quite touched. You'll notice the U spelling of the song titled Color of the Sun. I think the British spelling is significant, given all of the Beatles songs mentioning the sun and the co-writer Peter Mayer, who is a bona fide Beatles nut. The song appeared on the 2013 Songs from Saint Somewhere album. It's a melancholic song, but full of gratitude and faith. For all of you who have stared in wonderment at the sun's ability to paint colors on the sky, at the shore, or anywhere, I imagine this song addresses you. I had the good fortune to ask Peter Mayer, one of several co-writers of the song, about Color of the Sun. Here's what he said. I'm not sure whether it was from a poem or a book I was reading, but the phrase Color of the Sun came to me and I immediately thought of Jimmy. That doesn't always happen. Often I store the titles away and think it might be good for a song or one of my records, but this one I immediately thought of Jimmy, that no one would know better how to unpack this story from the suitcase. Roger and I began working on this song when he owned a vacation home in Arkansas. He spent a weekend taking a run at it and came up with some nice melodies together. It was later, when we were working on Jimmy's album together down in Palm Beach, Florida, that Mac, Roger, Will Kimbrough, myself, and Jimmy listened to the song together. Jimmy immediately went to work spinning his lyric threads across the melody. I especially love what he did with the last verse and his reference to Hurricane Sandy. It is a juggling of bittersweet and delight he throws into so many of his songs, always with a sense of whimsy, a half smile, but always deep and reflective as well. In the second verse, we had an original lyric that went, bicycles with rusted wheels, a nail in search of a hammer. The sky is fair, a sailor's shield, far away from the clamor. Jimmy's edit was, bicycle with rusted wheels, a frame in need of adjusting. Red sky night that Fred Neil feel when the world wasn't bustling. It's an oft-repeated thread in Jimmy's onstage banter and in his songs. Fred Neil was one of the reasons Jimmy moved to Florida, where the weather suits his clothes. I was caught by the common phrase working title that is given to unfinished movies, songs, etc. I kept turning it over in my head like a coin, seeing that it could be understood in different ways. Like, the person I am in my job is my working title. It's a very different story when I'm at home or with my friends, etc. Well, in the song, working title became the working tide will come around again. All the best anthems need an accident to make them more than cliches. That's one of the pleasures of co-writing with people like JB, Mac, Roger, Will, who know what they're doing, by admitting their best work is done by inviting in the mysteries, to make way for the magic accidents that get you into a delightful new neighborhood. Thank you, Peter Mayer, for sharing this insight. Side note, I'm glad Peter mentioned the reference to the folkie Fred Neil. Buffett was a surprise on-stage guest at the July 11, 2023 Peter Mayer and Brendan Mayer concert at the Stephen Talkhouse on Long Island. One of the songs JB performed was Fred Neil's Everybody's Talking. Surely a great memory. Color of the Sun has been performed by Jimmy Buffett in concert just twice, but you can track down a unique version of the song on the Peter Mayer Group double CD, Live from the Last Island, that Little Flock Music released. We come to the last song in this commentary. Are you here? In a recent phone call, Michael Eltley talked about Book on the Shelf, the last song on Buffett's 2020 album, Life on the Flip Side. Listen.
You know what's amazing is Mac and my son and his daughter wrote Book on the Shelf with Jimmy, and that's so exciting, and that's such a great song.
I concur. It's so cool that two people who have been playing and writing with Jimmy Buffett for decades have children who write songs with Jimmy. In fact, I wrote a review and expressed that Book on the Shelf was the best song on the album. Buffett's performed it half a dozen times so far, but something tells me that maybe he'll perform it again one of these days. There's some implicit advice in the song that is worth its weight in gold. The lyrics say, "Keep moving and listening and amusing myself." Let's face it, that's not a bad way to live. I had the chance to speak with Buffett's co-writers, Mick Utley and Aaron McAnally, who were kind enough to tell me a little bit about the song. Watch.
Well, it was wild because that happened again so sort of naturally. The idea came together so easily in Mick's parents' living room. And then, flash forward, what was it, 8 months?
Yeah, maybe.
So when the recording happened, and so we had laid down this framework that felt very natural to us, and then we were lucky enough that Jimmy liked it and he really spun gold out of it. We think it turned out really, really great. But it's very much him. So I think it was a nice balance of what we had started and how he finished it.
Absolutely. It's a real honor.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, thank you. Too kind.
Book on the Shelf is whimsical and self-referential. It's a clever song, and the lyrics reference the album title, one of the other song titles, and a personal calamity. There's also a statement about the purpose of writing. "These songs aren't for me, they're for you," Jimmy sings. It's an important thing for all writers to keep in mind, the reader, the listener. Jimmy Buffett always seems mindful of that. It's also clear that he gets real joy from people enjoying the stories he can tell. Thank you so much for watching this commentary. I feel that I must mention some other honorable mentions from the 2000s to present: Breathe In, Breathe Out, Move On, Oceans of Time, and Slack Tide. What do you think? I'd really like to hear what Buffett songs from the 2000s to present you think of as underrated. Maybe it's Coastal Confessions. Just leave a comment down below. And there's something to look forward to. Did you know that? What's that? There's a brand new Jimmy Buffett record that's supposed to be coming out sometime in 2023. I've got a good feeling about it, and we'll be sure to review it. It's been an honor to have you here with me. I don't take your attention for granted at all. Thank you for watching. Until next time, special thanks to Jeff Melia